Did you know we have matter-antimatter explosions happening inside our bodies? You've had over 100 of these explosions in the past hour alone. These explosions are really tiny compared to the human scale, but these are the massive explosions in terms of converting all of the mass of an electron and its antimatter equivalent, a positron, into energy. And it's using that equation, E equals mc squared. So you're taking all of the mass of an electron and a positron, its antimatter equivalent, and you're combining them to release all of that mass as energy. This calculation is actually pretty easy, although I did notice that the ChatGPT and Google's equivalent of Gemini couldn't do this calculation. But it's quite simple because we know roughly how much potassium we have in our body, and we know what tiny fraction of that is a radioactive isotope of potassium-40, and then we know the half-life of potassium-40, which is 1.25 billion years. So it's only a tiny fraction of potassium-40 that's decaying at any given moment. And then when that potassium-40 decays into calcium and argon, only a tiny fraction of those decay events result in creating a positron, or an antimatter equivalent of an electron. But as soon as that positron is created, it meets up with an electron and the matter-antimatter collides, and it converts all of the mass of both the electron and the positron into energy. It just turns out that this amount of energy is minuscule. So if you summed up all of the matter-antimatter explosions from potassium throughout the course of a whole year, and we're looking at more than 100 an hour. So these are a lot of explosions. But if we took all of that energy released from all of them, you're looking at less than a millionth of the energy that you would get just by striking a match. So these explosions happening inside our bodies right now, we can't even detect them. Even though they're massive relative to an electron, electrons are just so tiny and have so little mass that these explosions don't even affect us in any way we can perceive. I used to think that antimatter was this exotic particle, and you could only come up with antimatter in, say, a particle accelerator, or in crazy conditions out in space, or in science fiction, like in the Starship Enterprise, the warp core that they use to power their starship and to fly faster than the speed of light. They powered that with matter-antimatter explosions. So I used to think these were very exotic particles. And I think it's pretty cool to find out that actually they're a daily occurrence. It's happening all the time. The potassium is decaying in our bodies in a way that creates antimatter frequently. I think that's pretty cool.